Dungeons and Dragons. It's both the grandfather and the king of the TTRPG hill. And even though I enjoy a good dungeon crawl now and then, I much prefer horror and mystery games. Sure, you can play mysteries in Dungeons and Dragons, but I'm still more fond of games that are tailor-made for detective work and investigation, like Call of Cthulhu or Vaesen. I'm my group's forever DM. Write in the comment section if you can relate. And I love writing, prepping and leading my groups through supernatural investigation. In my humble opinion, theater of the mind style of combat works best for mystery games, since combat is usually best avoided. And tactical combat with minis can really slow the game down. But I still love miniatures and maps, since it's such a great help when you're trying to remember where everyone is and what areas have been explored and whatnot. The tactile experience of minis helps me to fully connect to the game experience in a way Roll20 and other VTTs can't do. Don't get me wrong, I do use VTTs when I play online and they're great. But for me at least, nothing beats the good old IRL experience when playing role-playing games. Physical minis and maps also help my players to focus, since they have an actual avatar on the board representing their character. A physical object they can feel, touch, pick up and fiddle with. But not in a strange way. You pervert? It's not strange that I'm fond of minis, since I, like so many others, grew up not really affording to play a full game of Warhammer. But we still tried though. I don't know about you, but even though I'm a grown-up, my treasure pile is still small enough that I have to budget my hobbying responsibly. So finding cheap minis and props is paramount. When it comes to TTRPG minis, it's really easy to find minis for D&D and sci-fi games. There's loads of them out there, and you can even find cheap toys that suit the bill. And as long as we are talking about monsters for Cthulhu or Vaesen, those kinds of minis are also easy to come by. But when it comes to investigators, or NPCs, it's much harder to find minis or toys that doesn't break the immersion, or the back. So that's the problem we're going to solve. Where and how do we find cheap minis for Call of Cthulhu? I started this quest by looking up alternatives online. I ended up on Etsy, and there are lots of really cool looking investigator models there. But they do still cost a lot of treasure, like they should, because they're really well made. To quote the Joker, if you're good at something, never do it for free. But looking at these investigator models gave me a light bulb moment. Why does these minis make me think of my childhood? And suddenly one word popped up in my mind. Cluedo! Do you remember Cluedo, or Clue as it's called in America? It's a murder mystery board game designed by Waddington Games in 1949. In this game you use deduction to try to figure out whom the murderer is, in what room the murder took place and what weapon was used. The game board is a mansion and the players are represented by minis. I went out looking, and buying a new copy of Cluedo isn't cheap. It costs about 40 European or American gold coins. But since Cluedo is an old game, it can be found pretty easily in thrift stores. I say pretty easily, but more on that later. It took me about a month of thrift store hunting, but then I got not one, but 2 copies of Cluedo. They were about 12 gold coins together, so compared to a new copy or a box of Space Marines, it was a bargain. Let's open up these bad boys, shall we? The first one is a real gold mine. It has the board, which I will use as my go-to haunted house map for horror TTRPGs. But more importantly, it has the minis. All 6 of them, from Miss Scarlet to Professor Plum. Just look at them. They'll be perfect for investigator archetypes. Now, let's check out the second one. This one also has quite a nice board, but alas, this is where I realized that game pieces in different editions of Cluedo differ a lot. It contains really boring minis, but maybe they'll be useful as an objective or clue markers in future mysteries. So all in all, not great success, but a win in any case. The first game was missing one murder weapon, the wrench, and the second one had none of the weapons, but for our intents and purposes, that's totally fine. We still got these 6 investigators for 12 coins. That's only 1.2 coins per mini. Now, let's paint them and see how they look. I'll be upfront with you. I'm a terrible mini painter, but I still can't resist to at least try to beautify these little rascals. If you've never painted a mini, here's a guide. The first step is to wash them to remove finger fat that might prevent the colors from sticking to the model. Then I will prime the model with a special kind of color, a primer. The primer will help the subsequent layers of paint stick to the figure. Primers come in both spray can and in bottle or pots. For this project I'm going to use the bottles since it's summertime and the air is very humid. I'll be using a method called slap chop. Some painters hate it, but for my skill level it's perfect. I'll start by covering the entire mini with black paint. The primer's pigments is made for this, so you don't need to thin the paint and don't need to worry about covering up details. Okay, done. Now let's make some magic potion while we wait, shall we? And just like that, our minis have dried. The next step is to give them a dry brush of white. Dry brushing is doing exactly what it's called. You paint using an almost dry brush. So I dip my brush in white paint and then I wipe off almost all paint using a paper towel. I then use my thumb to test if it's dry enough. Just the raised parts of the skin of my thumb should get paint on them. And then I'll brush the mini. The point of this step is to give the mini clear highlights, because the paint will stick to the highlights and turn them white, and the shadows will stay dark or black. The reason we want to do this is because then we can use talent in a bottle, also known as speed paints or contrast paints as Games Workshop calls them. Speed paints or contrast paints has a mix of pigments in them that make them work both as a regular paint and a wash at the same time. This will make some pigments pool in the recesses of the mini, creating shadow. And other parts will get thinner coats of paint which will give them a highlight. In fact, we could have just painted the minis white, but using slap chop creates a more dramatic miniature which in my opinion suits Call of Cthulhu or Vaesen. Voila, they're done. I gave them simple color schemes. That way they can still easily be used to play Cluedo. My lack of skills are noticeable, but since they're meant to be used at a distance, they work great anyway. Now, let's try them out. Somewhere in a mysterious mansion, something has gone terribly wrong. Oh, what was that? Ah, that's probably nothing. It's just the wind.
I live again.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope I've inspired you to get out on your own thrift store hunt for Investigator minis. Remember, it's not only good for your wallet, but you'll also do the environment a favor. If you do find any good minis, let me know in the comment section. And also, if you have any other advice on miniatures for Call of Cthulhu, share your wisdom in the comment section. Now, take care,
And remember, keep calm and play Call of Cthulhu.